I'm going to tell you just a couple of things about what we're doing. So we do these for organizations all over the country, and the groups vary from people that love to cook and have all the ingredients to people who have never cooked and literally, don't know what anything is. So we try to take care of all the things. So if you got a bag at home today, there's probably about 17, 18 things in there. Don't let that spook you because you probably have all of those things. I just put it in there in case you don't have it. And we'll go through it. It'll make sense. It's perfect. It's easy. Reed and I spent the last 2 days cutting, chopping, prepping, bagging, labeling. You know how hard it is to write in tiny little letters on tape? So we did that so that you would have an awesome experience and not have to think about it too much at home. So don't let all the mini containers freak you out. It's going to make perfect sense, I assure you. And another thing, so we're combining some African techniques of, the way we're going to build up the flavors. I'm using dried apricot because in a lot of African curries and African, the big gravy sauces and foods, there's always some sort of a fruit component, whether it's bananas being used, whether it's dried fruit. So I wanted to stick with something that combines our state in Colorado and where we are, which is some stone fruit, whether it's apricot, peaches, Colorado grapes, amazing raisins. And we've got bison for the meat eaters in the group today. This is Colorado bison. And then for those of you who are not, we're using acorn squash, which is absolutely wonderful. And we're gonna get started. So first thing, make sure you've got an oven going at around 375 degrees, give or take. And what we're gonna do with that, and then at the same time, we're gonna get a pot going so it starts to get warm. We'll start browning the meat or the vegetables in that. So don't get ahead of me, all right? Yeah, during the whole process, feel free to throw up a hand, wave, make a noise, unmute yourself, shout. We're basically all friends here, And don't forget to pour yourself a glass of water, a cocktail. Maybe you're having a vodka tonic. I don't know what you're having, but it's Sunday night, you're at home. This is gonna be a fun evening. We're gonna have a good night together, all right. So, oven is on. I'm gonna show you something cool. In all the bags, you should have gotten acorn squash. So the ones that I did slice, I sliced it because sometimes, if you're not super careful, because the hard shell, it'll slip and it'll take off your fingertips, and I didn't want to have anybody lose their fingers tonight. So if you just have an acorn squash, and we leave the skin on, all right? So this, once it's done, this is the only thing that's going into the oven. We're gonna do that first because it takes the longest amount of time. A little bit of oil and some salt and pepper. I love it, everybody's cooking. Everybody's rushing around, this is fantastic. All right, a little salt and pepper. And what we're gonna do, we're just gonna bake these flat in the oven so that they crisp up and get crunchy. And at the end of it, we're gonna chop it up. It's basically like a crunchy potato chip that we're gonna sprinkle over the chili. That's really the whole purpose of this, is to make kind of a crunchy, salty deliciousness that we can sprinkle over salads or soups or a bowl of rice or an omelet or your cereal. Maybe you want salty cereal tomorrow. So, Steve, are you cooking? I see you directing, Steve, that's good.
I'm observing the cooking.
All right, good.
That's how Steve rolls. That's how
Exactly.
Observing takes a lot of effort. I know we've got a couple of vegetarians in there. Don't panic. You're going to do this part. If you've got the sliced acorn squash, I don't know why I keep wanting to call it apricot. Acorn squash, just a little olive oil or canola oil, whatever you got, coconut oil, a little salt and pepper. We're just going to throw that in the oven because that's literally the thing that takes the longest of everything we're doing. All right, so I will put it into my baking pan, and then I'm gonna show you some really cool things. I know everybody thinks, especially in Colorado, everyone's a chili expert, right? And what does Dad do? Dad comes home, takes a bunch of stuff, throws it in a slow cooker, and you go away, come home 3 hours later, and everything tastes like water. So I'm gonna actually show you how to build some really great flavors really fast. Incredible chili. And chili should not be an afterthought. It could be an actual star of the meal. That's what we're gonna do tonight. That's why you got all this cool stuff. Okay, so I've got acorn squash, olive oil, some salt. I'm gonna sprinkle some pepper on it as it goes into the oven. That's all I got. It's going into the oven. It's gonna be in there for about a half hour. So we're basically gonna put it in the oven and forget about it while we do everything else, okay? Just like they do at the French Laundry, Rebecca. Yes, Rebecca's got a question. Hold on, we can't hear you yet. Hold on, Rebecca. You got unmuted on your side. There you are.
So because I never follow directions and I always start things on my own,
Yeah.
I started this about 20 minutes ago
Sure.
before we even started because I just get things going and it's really soft right now.
Yeah.
So I just threw it back in the oven at 400. So because it's not really crisp at all.
Yeah,
So
it takes about 45 minutes in one
Okay,
layer, and it'll crisp up. You'll see.
Okay, so,
'Cause
I started it. I took it out because I thought you wanted it soft, but I didn't know it was going to be like crispy garnish. So I just threw it back in there.
Exactly. All right, no problems. It's going to be perfect. All right, so those of you that are using bison, we're going to go into the pot now. First, just the beef. We're going to start, or the bison. We're going to brown it. If you're doing the vegetarian version and you have the minced up acorn squash, that can go into the pot now in a medium heat with some olive oil, okay? And we're just gonna get both of it, whether you're doing the vegetarian version or the bison. We're gonna get it kind of browned, a little crispy, and get some color on it. And then we'll start building some flavors around that. Anybody's got any questions? Hey Reed, can you put the names back up? I can't see everyone's. Romeo, sir, where'd your daughter go? She looked like she was getting ready to cook.
She's here cooking. She's about to say goodnight.
Oh, good. All right.
Good night, night.
Bye. Okay.
Say
Bye,
thank you.
guys. All right. Okay, so if you've got bison going, if you've got the minced acorn squash, that's the only thing that's in the pot right now. We're just gonna brown it a little bit, and we're gonna start adding all the things, and we're gonna let it simmer, and then we're gonna get to catch up. We're gonna talk about our feelings, how everybody's doing today. Did we all recover? You know, a lot happened this week, a lot to talk about. Jamie disappeared as soon as that happened. All right, Jamie, I'm saying there's a lot of, a lot happened, so this is one of those dishes. We're gonna put it on the stove, and we got a lot of room and time. All right, okay. Everybody with me so far? Rebecca's like 5 steps ahead, so we don't have to worry about her. Felicity, how you doing?
Rebecca's an overachiever.
Yeah, well, you know, to live in that household, you'd have to be an overachiever.
That is true. That
I
is
am-
true.
I am
People
on-
left behind quickly.
I feel bad for Kim
I'm an
sometimes.
underachiever. I'm trying to just follow what you're doing. I'm still behind. I'm still looking for a pan.
Felicity, we've done nothing yet. We've got
I
bison.
just finally found a pot, a pan. I'm good.
All right.
No Felicity.
Oh my gosh. All
Trying
right.
to make everybody else feel good.
Well, this is good. We got time. We got nowhere to be. This is all we have to do tonight. And then, you know, this is all I have to do tonight. I'm sure some of you have other things to do. All right, so while the meat's browning, the interesting thing is, so if you have South African curries and then Indian, especially North Indian curries, there's always a little bit of sweetness that comes through. And a lot of these African, you know, and you know, obviously a lot of them, when you get away from Southeast Asian curries, a lot of the sweetness comes from they add sugar. But you get into African Indian curries where there's sweetness, we don't really cook with sugar. That's very much a modern shortcut thing that people do. The sweetness comes from cooking down onions and adding in fruit. So we cook in with a little bit of raisins, a little bit of apricots, a little bit of whatever you got locally or regionally. It really adds that whole kind of layer of complexity and a little bit of flavor. Okay, if your meat's nice and brown, make sure it's brown before you add the next thing. Because once you start adding stuff, you know, the browning feature kind of goes down. So we got to do it in steps. High heat if you need to. If you're doing the vegetarian version, get it nice and crispy first. Okay, it looks like some people are jumping ahead. Ryan, you're not doing anything, bud. One of you needs to be cooking. We can, you know, Ryan, you know we can see you, right?
we're playing a little bit of catch up here.
All right, whoever's in the middle is drinking. Cheers to that. Sarah, well done, Sarah. We can see you too. Well done, Christine. Cheers.
Yeah, Christine's definitely drinking.
Joyce, Marcy's way up there hiding. Marcy left us. All right. Okay. We've got a lot to talk about, so I'm going to get through this. Now, I know a lot of you cook, or the rumor is a lot of you cook, and when you're especially building ethnic foods, you got to think in terms of what the original style of cooking would have been. Like, I grew up in India when everything we cooked was on an open fire pit. We had to go get wood, we had to get water out of the well, we had to build a fire, and there's 1 or 2 pots, so there wasn't like an extensive amount of equipment. So you got to think that the technique and the style of cooking was really to get all the flavor you can out of each ingredient, which is why like slow cooker soups and slow cooker chilies and stuff, really not my favorite because it's very lazy. You just throw a bunch of stuff in a pot, you leave and you hope for the best. Versus like really giving it a little bit of love and a little bit of attention and building layers of flavor, just like building layers into a friendship or a relationship. Whoa, did you see that? Nice. See how I did that? That was good, right? Beautiful. All right, we'll come back to that. So, the meat is mostly all the way brown. And don't worry, it's got a ways to cook, so it's going to keep cooking even if it's got a little bit of pink in there. All right, next up, minced onions, okay? Don't add any of the dry stuff yet. Now, let's add in the minced onions, and now keep cooking it, keep scraping it. You should have some minced carrots or diced carrots, whatever you have. Add all the really hearty things. So you want to add the most hearty thing in the beginning, cook down each layer, roast, 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 until the most delicate thing at the very end, today, which will be the fresh cilantro or the fresh tomato, right? So we're going to add the things that are going to take the most amount of cook time. The onions, just like a friendship or a relationship, Reed, right? Unbelievable. All right, carrot went in, onions went in. We're going to keep scraping that. You should have had, the folks that we did bags for, you got, in the bag, you've got a little thing of tomato paste. We're going to use that in a couple of minutes. And you've got a can of beans, which we're going to use at the very end if you want to use the beans. You don't have to use the beans. Everybody with me? All right, we've done nothing so far. Yes, Ryan?
What should the pot be at, the temperature?
Which one are you making? Are you doing the vegetarian version?
The vegetarian.
Yeah, so just do like a medium high so you don't burn it, but you want it to get nice and cooked and crisp. And we leave the skin on because the skin adds this whole like really wonderful texture. But without burning, if it starts getting black, it's too hot. But you want like a medium high heat so it's nice and roasty, like a nice dark brown, okay?
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Ann, are you doing anything? It just looks like you're hanging out and watching. I mean, which is great. That's
Did you have a question? If we're doing, I'm not doing the vegetarian, but if I was, would you add a little bit of olive oil or canola oil to the pot?
Absolutely.
But
Yeah.
not for meat.
Yeah, not for the meat, because the meat, as you can see, it's already cooking down. But if you're doing the vegetarian, for sure, a little olive oil. And for the meat, we can kind of cook it as we go, but if we see that we want to crisp it up, we can add a little more oil to it. Okay, so I've got the carrots and onions in there. Now, next up, we're going to add the apricot. Everybody got some diced up apricots? If you didn't get a bag, and if you really don't have apricots, use some raisins. If you don't have that, open up your fridge. You probably have some sort of jam. We did a thing in Aspen last week. I have a giant, like a commercial size can of imported orange marmalade. So use whatever you have. It's something a little bit sweet. I diced up a bunch of apricots for you guys. That's going to go in. And we put it in now because as it cooks, it's going to really dissolve and fall apart and give this really nice earthy sweetness that isn't sugary, but it's just a little bit of sweetness, which is really wonderful. All right, so we've got the the bison is going, onions, carrots, apricots. I gave all of you brown sugar because I don't know if you have brown sugar. You don't have to use it, but it's there. We're going to wait on that. Okay, so now we have a bunch of dry ingredients, tomato paste. The only fresh that I have are the cilantro and tomatoes, which are going to wait till the very end, okay? Just so that they don't fall apart. All right, everybody good? Everybody with me? Who's got a question? Yes, Rebecca Gart.
Were we supposed to add the tomato paste in already?
I mean, you can, but everybody else is going to wait.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
You said like everything was in and that scared me, so.
Yeah, no, that's okay. It's going to be fine. It's all going to go into the same pot. It's all going to come out together. It's going to be great. But if we just kind of build layers of flavor, this is why, like, when I cook, and people are like, wow, I made the exact same thing, but it tasted different. That's because layers.
What about what about the chili peppers?
We're going to come to that. So I put jalapenos and 1 Fresno in each bag. The Fresno is the red one. It's definitely hotter. Save that for the very end. You can just sprinkle, garnish it, chop it up, sprinkle it over the thing as a garnish.
Got it.
What's that? Okay, so in the pot right now, I've got the bison is browning, no dry spices, onions, carrots, and apricots, okay? So now my pot, can they see this? Yeah. My pot is pretty dry, like most of the liquid is cooked off. So I'm gonna start adding the dry ingredients, right? So what we wanna do is like get everything in there, then we'll add the tomato paste, because once we add the tomato paste, we have to add water right away. So, and once we add water, we can no longer build texture. It's all about building texture, just like in a friendship. Hey! All right, yes. All right, so everybody with me? We're gonna go nuts now with the spices. So, I'm gonna tell you what I sent you. I sent you some chili powder, the dark red. Taste it, make sure you like it, put some on your finger. It's not spicy, it's got a little saltiness to it. I sent you just cumin by itself. I know some people don't like cumin, so it's separately on its own. It's up to you, you don't have to use it, this is your party, okay? And then there's one thing, adobo. So that's basically your general Mexican spice blend. You can use it for anything you want. If there's something in there you don't like, you don't have to use it. I would suggest using it because it's awesome. All right, we're gonna start adding all the dry things, okay? So far, there's nothing salty, nothing really hot, spicy hot in there, okay? So I'm gonna add basically all the things I have. Chili powder, all of mine is going in. The adobo, all of mine is going in. The cumin, I'm gonna do like half because sometimes it can be overpowering. I'm just gonna do half now, I can do half later. Give that a nice stir. If you're doing the vegetarian one, you can do all the same things now. Just add a little oil if you're doing the vegetarian one and it starts drying out, okay? All the dry stuff is in there now. I've got a little brown sugar and soy sauce on the side. The soy sauce, I sent you guys these awesome little bottles, and I didn't want to put too much in there, so the soy sauce I sent you is a gluten-free soy sauce. But this is a super cool little bottle that once you're done with the soy sauce, next time you're doing like a fancy dinner, you put whatever in there so you can do these really cool little plating with this, really cool little things you can do on the plate. All right, so everything's in there. I'm gonna add a little bit of brown sugar. Again, I sent you, yes, Robin, what do you got?
How much I'm using coconut aminos because I don't do soy. So
Sure.
how much?
Start with like a tablespoon, just enough to coat it all. We don't wanna do too much. We want just enough. So before we get to the soy sauce, we're gonna add the brown sugar first.
Okay.
All right,
Did you say to add the red pepper?
the red pepper flakes, if you want it hot, go ahead and add it now if you want it spicy.
Great,
Okay.
thank you.
And again, if none of this, it's all gonna be fine. So if you missed something, if you did too much, it's chili, it's gonna be great. Okay, so I'm gonna do a quick recap of what I have in the pot. I've got the meat, the onions, the carrots, and a little bit of all of my dry spices that I sent over. Next thing I'm gonna add is half of the brown sugar I sent. You can always add the other half later if we need. Okay, half of the brown sugar, and then do half the soy sauce I sent you. So about a tablespoon and a half, and mix it really well. Now it's gonna go really fast from here.
Can you
Okay.
tell us what the advantage of doing soy sauce or not, or in brown sugar or not are?
Yeah, so we're trying to round out the flavor. So adding a little bit of brown sugar along with a little bit of the apricot gives it a really nice kind of depth to the flavor. So when you're eating it, it doesn't taste like an afterthought. It actually tastes like a really delicious, substantial, awesome dish. And that's typically why when you go to a great restaurant that you love and you get a dish that you love, it's because the kitchen crew there thought about all that. There's a little bit of sweetness somewhere, not too much, just a tiny little bit, a little bit of saltiness. The aminos and this, the gluten-free soy sauce you have has a really nice umami effect that you don't want to taste soy sauce. You just want to get that little rounded out kind of flavor in the back, and just kind of finishes the whole palate for you. So that's why we do that. Okay, so I've got soy sauce, brown sugar. The only thing left right now is tomato paste, okay? And as soon as you add tomato paste, you need to add some water. So I have about a cup of water. Basically everything is in the pot now. I'm gonna add my tomato paste, add the whole can in there, scrape it in there, scrape it together really good. And then you'll see it gets super thick. And then you'll need water, so depending on how thick or thin your setup is, add as much water, but let's try to maybe do enough water to where it looks like a chili. So it shouldn't be super dry, and it shouldn't be super watery. Okay, and basically everything's in there, it's all done. Now we're just gonna let it simmer, and we're gonna come back and hear some people's stories. Nasaya, you ready to tell us all about where you've been? Did I pronounce your name right?
No, it's Nasaya.
Nasaya.
Yeah.
All right, we're almost ready for you. Nasaya, you're not cooking, but you're thinking. I see you. I see a lot of thinking happening there. Thinking's good.
Yeah.
Can you skip back? All right, I'm gonna add, so everything's in the pot. Everybody with me? Everything's in the pot. All the dry things. The only things I didn't put in the pot are my cilantro and tomato, which I'm gonna save until the end. Okay, but it's okay if it's in there. Yeah, so now we're gonna put it down to a medium heat. Now that everything's in the pot, I'm gonna add my water. I'm adding about a cup and a half just to bring it all together. You see that? Add a little water.
So I have tofu in my packet, and I didn't hear you say anything about tofu.
Yeah, so tofu, we're gonna wait just a minute. I wanna so do you have all the other things in your pot with the minced apricot, or the minced?
I have everything else.
All right, we'll let it cook for a minute, and while it's cooking, while we're hearing Nasaya's story, if you wanna cut up the tofu however you like, and I didn't chop it up because some people like big chunks, some people like crumbles, however you like, chop it up, and then we'll fold it in after all the flavors come together. If you put it in too soon, it just gets kind of mushy. So if you have tofu.
And then
You added jalapeno already? Oh, sorry, Rebecca.
No, I didn't add jalapenos or the beans yet. Those are kind of towards the end, whoever wants to. We'll get this cooking first. We'll taste it, make sure it's bueno, then add whatever else you want. We got jalapenos, we got the kidney beans, cilantro, tomatoes. Somebody the other day said they don't like cilantro, so whatever you want, but we'll wait. We'll let this simmer for a couple minutes, and we'll come back to it. Rebecca, what was your question? Is that good?
Can I
Okay.
ask you a question about the chopping up the jalapeno?
Yeah.
So is there a way to do it so that I don't need to wear gloves? Otherwise, it seems like whenever I'm chopping it up and then I touch my eyes sting. So I always use gloves to chop it up. Is there?
Yeah, that's pretty much the thing is it's gonna, once you get the oils on your finger, I used to wear contacts for years and it was awful. So yeah, you gotta wear gloves. But the other thing to do is if you just wanna use it as a garnish at the end, we can hold it, where did all the peppers go? You can hold it with the fork, kind of like this, and just slice off a few rings and then sprinkle it over the top at the end of it as a fresh thing. That way you don't spice up your fingers. Thomas Corley, sir, do you have a question? No, you're just having drinks? That works too. Hi. Marcy, are you good? Are you all caught up?
I'm really good. Thank you.
Romeo, you good, sir? Bueno. Beth writes, going to town over there, so Beth has got it. Thomas, you've got a question. Where'd you go? No? Bueno. All right. So this right now just looks like your standard issue high school cafeteria chili. I assure you it's going to taste better. So we're just going to turn it down really low, let it simmer just for a few minutes. I'm going to check the thing in the oven, which is the acorn squash. Make sure it's not burning. Hold on. So acorn squash, mine in the oven looks like that. It's a little bit soft, which is fine. In the next 10 to 15 minutes, it'll start crisping up. Okay, so don't forget about that. All right. Everybody's good? Felicity. Yes, you're good. You were just nodding along. The Woodards are doing fantastic. I think they've ordered a pizza, so that's great. I highly recommend. Sarah's chugging the drink. Sarah, was that red? What do you got over there? All right, well, welcome. All right, I'm going to hand it over to...
I'm laughing at Felicity, who is my sister, who does not like to cook.
Christine, are you good?
For her cooking prowess.
It's
Oh, she's
very
not-
entertaining for here. Look, here's Felicity. All right, I'll stop talking about it.
Christine's not known for her cooking. Come on.
Not in the least. And Felicity, this is why you and I are friends.
Exactly right.
See, there's a trade-off. See, that's why. All right, so
It's almost 8 o'clock here, so it's clearly way past happy hour. Just saying. 8:06.
whatever you have left, save the tomatoes and the cilantro for the very end so it doesn't totally fall apart. Red pepper flakes, if you have it, if you want it, add some in or save it for the end. Because some of these things we can add it towards the end so we can adjust for the flavor. Tofu, if you're using it, go ahead and chop it up however you want to eat it and put it in there now very gently so it simmers. That's really it. We're basically done. So now we're going to hear some stories and then we'll come back and taste it. If it's awful, you can blame Reed. If it's great, you're very welcome. So we're going to hear first from Nasaya. Am I pronouncing it right? Did I say it wrong again?
No, that's correct.
All right. So we've got so many questions for you, but to start with, was this the first summer that you were involved at GLI, or were you involved year before?
Yeah, so this was the first summer that I was involved with GLI. I actually was on track to fly to Uganda for the internship, but then the pandemic hit, and so GLI had to switch it to a virtual platform, which was super disappointing. Obviously, I was really looking forward to getting the physical experience, but it also was very rewarding in specific ways that I think could only be done through a virtual platform.
Sure.
So networking was a huge part of the program, and Jamie and Tom reiterated a lot of times during the first week, challenging us to meet a new person every week, which was a big ask, I think, but it was intentional. And so this included obviously the peers in my cohort of the fellowship program, but it also included other students in different cohorts, and then the GLI staff, and they even brought on CEOs of different NGOs and nonprofits in the area, in the East African area. And so while this was a challenging expectation to me, it was incredibly fulfilling and rewarding to actually meet these people every single week and hear all of their stories, hear how they got involved with GLI, the different ways that they're making concrete change in their part of the world as well as globally. It was just amazing. And I think that it was intentional because it really forced us to make the most of the experience. I think that it would have been amazing to be there physically, but to be there virtually and do it on a virtual platform was also rewarding in its own way.
That's super cool. So does anybody have any questions or anything you want to ask her while and then we're going to come back to you in a second. And also make sure to scrape your chili so it doesn't burn or stick to the bottom, all right? So give it a quick scrape and then keep going from that. Reed, where were the other? Yeah. So, are you working with GLI now, or what do you have going on this fall?
Yeah, so I was lucky enough to be able to talk to Jamie after as the fellowship was ending. I expressed to him, I was just absolutely thirsting for more interactions with this organization. And I just completely fell in love with GLI and everything that they stand for, and all of their staff are so amazing. And so on that call, he was like, oh, well, maybe we'll just set up an internship. And I was like, oh my God, that sounds great. And it kind of went from there. Tom Carroll was really instrumental in helping me set it up. So was Andrew Ward. But I'm actually working with Sheila Gabaya, and she's been absolutely amazing. So I started the internship in September, and I definitely expected it to be challenging, maybe not in the workload, but definitely in, my thinking, the conceptualization of inequalities, pushing me out of my comfort zone, working on things I've never worked on before. And so I think what I've realized so far is that the critical post-colonial theory that I've learned in my academic work with a sociology major has really become a necessity in this type of work. And so it's been really important for me to understand, yes, the colonial past of Uganda, but also America's part in it, as I'm working in an American organization. And so it's really important, as GLI does, to really emphasize and focus on the ways that we can break those imperialistic cycles. And so something that me and Sheila have been working on is thinking of ways to battle the stigma connected to HIV and AIDS primarily, but also, gender-based violence and Down syndrome, as well as the prejudice and discrimination that accompanies those vulnerable groups, and create positive spaces for them, where there aren't any. And while this would be normally done physically, because of the pandemic, what me and Sheila are really working on is creating social media campaigns to raise awareness, and also creating a virtual event for GLI's World AIDS Day, event that they do annually in December.
Yeah.
So.
That's amazing. So what is the feedback, or how's it been so far for you since you two have been working on this?
It's been really, really interesting. I think that I expected it to be challenging. I didn't expect the ways that it challenged me. And so because it's a virtual internship, I pretty much work autonomously for the entire thing. And so there's a lot of self-direction, there's a lot of self-motivation that is inherent in that type of work. But it's also been amazing to see the personal growth that comes from pushing yourself and challenging yourself. And so to be able to do all of this research about all of these vulnerable groups that I thought I knew a lot about has been really enlightening, because I didn't really know a ton about them, right? And I think that a lot of the knowledge that I had were internalized stereotypes about these groups. And so to do the research myself and then help raise awareness and educate other people has been absolutely amazing. I think it's one of my favorite parts of the internship. But I also think it's really interesting to look at inequality in these specific contexts, right? Because even when we're talking about AIDS and HIV in America, right, that's conflated and associated with homosexuality, but that connection isn't present in the Ugandan context. And so it's been interesting, specifically looking at the Down syndrome social justice issues and the ways in which, different inequalities are perpetuated in Uganda that aren't, separated from that context. And so for me, that's really been the most interesting thing is, a lot of Ugandan families and Ugandan communities will connect Down syndrome with it's okay, with maybe witchcraft or something brought on by parental actions. And so that's not really present in America, but that's not to say that other ignorance, right, other ignorant stereotypes aren't perpetuated. So it's been interesting looking at the distinction and the difference depending on where you are, but it's also amazing to feel like I'm making real change. I'm making concrete change, and the things that I'm working on, they're not just academic projects that my professor will only see, right? Like this is going to reach a lot of people, hopefully in the best way possible, right? So
that's pretty amazing. And especially like with everything going on in the world right now and all the changes and all the general sense of awareness and willingness people are to listen to some other stories and experiences and what's going on in reality. So I really appreciate you taking the time. There's a lot of folks on here. I'm sure they've got all sorts of questions and interests and things to throw at you.
Chef?
Yes.
Chef?
Hi, Joyce.
Could you show us the consistency of your chili? We'd like to see your consistency compared to our consistency.
Sure. So the butternut squash is still a little soft, but it's cooked all the way through. This is perfectly fine. You can keep crisping it up. What happens with the squash though, once it gets really dark, it gets bitter really fast. So cook it through. Any point between now and crispy is perfectly fine, and you'll see why. So mine is basically done. I'm gonna put it back in the oven. I'm gonna turn the oven off, and each of you got some bread. Take the baguette, take the bread or whatever, throw it in the oven right now so it warms up, and we're gonna turn the oven off and just leave it in there, okay? Just any kind of bread, whatever you got, tortillas, whatever you got, just warm it up. I'm gonna put this back and we're gonna come back to the consistency. Okay, consistency, whatever consistency you want will work. Mine is kind of on the thick side right now. Can you see that? Oh yeah. So it's kind of thick, it holds together. I know some people like their chili to be a little more soupy, a little less thick. You can add to it. But yeah, mine is really kind of thick and put together. So, yes. What's the matter?
Can you zoom in?
Can you zoom in? Where should I go with this, Luke?
If possible.
Yeah, here. So, there it is. So mine kind of, and really it'll get, if you want it to be thicker, just let it cook a few more minutes. And it doesn't matter because it just depends what consistency you personally like. So mine it's pretty good and chunky and thick. I didn't add a ton of water when we were cooking, and it's been cooking this whole time. So now I'm gonna add half the cilantro, half the tomatoes, the diced tomatoes to it. Plus I'm gonna add the red pepper flakes now, just to kind of add it since we did it all. Jamie, do we still have you? Of course we do. All right, so I added half of the tomatoes, half the cilantro, just to have a little bit more color now. Mine is basically done. I'm gonna add some more water. Reed, what do you think? Should we make it a little more water? A little more soupy? Okay, I'm gonna add a little more water to this. So typically, people make chili at home, you leave it on the stove, it cooks for hours, it cooks for days. Romeo, what happened to yours?
It's good. We're like about the apricots over here. My chef who preps didn't dice them, so we have full apricots in our chili.
Yeah, you can throw them in there right now. Just chop them up really small. Oh, you got big ones in there. I see what you're saying. All right. So again, no wrong answer. The cool things you're going to walk away from today are using the skin on acorn squash to add texture, crispiness to whatever. Soy sauce, because it's awesome. And dried fruit, apricot, something to build a little more depth in your flavors. That's really everything you need to know. If you got those 3, 4-ish things. So taste the chili now, make sure it's got the salt you want, the heat you want. Add a little more water if you want. There's bread in the oven, obviously, so you got bread coming. Anybody's got questions for each other, open forum, please. Have at it. Let's hear everybody talk. What's going on? What is happening over there?
So if anyone wants to see what I'm doing.
Yes.
So
We
this
do
is
not
my-
want to see what you're doing because we know damn good and well that it's going to be perfection.
Okay, fuck you. Anyway. Anyway, that was a joke. It was just a joke. Okay, so that is my, can you guys see my, so my chili, I did the beef. That's ready. Like, it looks pretty good. These are artichokes that I did beforehand because my husband is like a veggie freak and he needs to always have a lot of vegetarian. And then look at this. These are kind of cool. Like my acorn squash. Can you guys see that?
Yep. It's
they became like really, really crispy and cool. So now I just need to like crunch them, like dice them up and put them on top. So that's cool.
Rebecca, that's one of my favorite things. I use them all the time.
And then I have like some cheese for toppings, but I went to the South Pearl Farmers Market today and I got these guys. They're like these like super crispy, like fresh homemade chips. And I think we're going to use those chips like as like a dipping thing with the cheese and like, and that. So like, I think that like we have probably like one of the best meals we've had in
I told you people you didn't want to hear it.
Oh, sorry. And these two. I made like little biscuits. I don't know how those look. Those look
way overachiever, Rebecca.
I know I'm such an overachiever.
Rebecca,
why
don't you put the chili in the avocados? That would be, Ken might go for that.
Okay.
Steve, that's such a good idea. I have an avocado. I think I'm going to use it as a garnish. Thank you. That's a great idea. So I have my artichokes and like seriously. But the South Pearl Farmers Market next week is the last week it's open, and I got beautiful greens and art. Like it's just so great. So anyway, I just want to shout out. Can I shout out really, really quickly?
I wish you would.
Because he is amazing, and I think I know how to cook, but every time I see him cook or experience this, I learn so much. And I just want to thank you so much, Chef Bijou, for doing this for us, for GLI, and just for always teaching me something. So thank you.
Rebecca Gart, I love you.
I love you too. Who's that? Is that Jamie?
No, that was me. I said.
Oh, that was Bijou.
Jamie left. Jamie's on the beach somewhere.
I just really, really want to thank you from all of us, because I always learn something, and
thank you.
And I've learned so much tonight. So thank you.
Thank you. And for anybody who rides road bikes, you know, Ken and I get out and ride bikes every now and then. So if you want to join with us, just let Steve or Ken know, and you can come join us. So we still have Will, who's going to speak to us a little bit too. Will Lively, are you here, sir? Are you hiding?
Yeah, I'm
somewhere?
right here.
Perfect.
How are you all doing?
Well, we'd love to hear from you, man. We want to hear about how you got involved and how things are going for you. So did you join in this year, or how? When did you join?
So yeah, I think I was one of the last trips who actually got to go to Uganda and Rwanda before the pandemic. So we went this past January. It was fantastic. It was actually kind of just almost a spur of the moment thing of trying to figure out something interesting to do kind of during the long winter break. And I saw GLI offered this extra class during the winter break, and I thought, sure, why not? And it's probably still to this day the best class I've ever taken. The takeaways that you can get from a college class, let's face it, sometimes are, you know, you go through the class and you leave and you kind of feel like, okay, now I know some stuff. But really this class, I felt like it opened my worldview more than any other class really could, which was perfect right before a pandemic that affects the entire world. Yeah.
Had you been to Africa before, or was that your first trip?
No, that was my first trip. Yeah, I had been to some other places around the world, however, never to Africa, no.
And did you get to eat while you're there? Since we're doing food, I forgot to ask Nasea this too. What was I mean, Nasea hasn't been there yet. You have. What was the food like? What was your favorite thing that you ate there? You got to pick your one favorite thing.
So I would have to say it's the Rolexes, which are these kind of like, you know, fried egg rolled up thing. It's not really an omelet, but it's kind of like an omelet, I guess. But they're usually made by, you know, street vendors. They were absolutely fantastic.
So what's in there? Are they in like a tortilla? Or are they in like a roti?
So I think it's kind of like a flatbread, and then you have eggs, you have onions typically, tomatoes, and then I think something else in there, and then it's rolled up, and it's a perfect, you know, grab and go kind of food. It actually keeps you full for quite a while.
Well, thank you, sir, for joining tonight. You know, this is obviously we're trying to do multiple things. We're trying to eat and cook and talk, but hopefully we can all hang out soon and actually have, you know, like a proper night out where we can hear everyone's stories and interact. But I appreciate you taking the time, Will.
Absolutely.
And did you cook? It doesn't look like you were cooking much, but maybe next time.
Not. Next time.
Okay, what's that? All right, so I've just chopped up the acorn squash that I had in the oven. Mine isn't all the way crispy, but it's crispy enough for me. I'm putting it on there. I sent every one of you that got a bag, you got a little thing of Daisy sour cream. I have the industrial size because sour cream is awesome. So, you know, feel free to put some on there if you want. You've got apricots chopped up. I'm gonna sprinkle a little bit of cilantro on mine. Can you guys see this? All right. And I've got some tomatoes. And then I'm gonna sprinkle a little more red pepper flakes because I'm gonna make Reed eat this. And it's really fun.
Chef, what about the beans and the lemon?
Oh yeah, okay, so the lemons are gonna be at the end. If you have beans that you wanted to use, fold them in now, okay? So just fold them in at the very end. We don't wanna overcook beans. Sorry, I forgot about that.
Are you draining the beans or putting it all in?
I would say put them all in, depending on, some people don't like beans, so If you like beans, take them out of the can, rinse them, drain it, and rinse it really quick. Fold it in. Yeah, fold it in. And I don't like to overcook them because they get super mushy, so I put them in at the very, very end. So this is perfect timing. If you got beans, if you did the vegetarian version, make sure the texture, add a little more water. Now you can kind of taste it, see if you need to add more soy, add a little more of this, add a little more of that. But all of our things are in the bowl. Mine looks like some version of that. I did not put sour cream on mine, which I'm going to do now through the sour cream caulking. Have you guys been to Taco Bell where the sour cream comes in a giant caulking gun? It's fantastic. I want one of those. I feel like mayonnaise and sour cream should only come in caulking guns. And if you've got peppers, you can chop it all up, throw it into the whole chili. I'm just going to use it as a garnish here at the end. So oh yeah, you can eat the skin. Will you put the names back up, Reed? Sorry. Susan, the skin is fantastic. If it's nice and crispy, it's really delicious.
This squash is absolutely delicious.
Yeah, chop it up and throw it on things. Ben, did you get anything out of this at all? You were like doing a million other things, so you're busy being Ben. It probably froze up on our end. Is that us? Okay, so I'm sprinkle some peppers. This is going to be the best chili you guys have had today. All right? Here's the don't get pepper juice in your eye hole routine. All right, everybody, that's what I've got. What else? I'm making this extra spicy for Reed. Okay. Can I see what everybody's got? Lisa Fogel, where did you come from? Did you make it? Lisa's got all the pieces parts. All right, Lisa, put it all in the pot. Hit it, put it in the blender.
Pichu, I have a question for you. I had heard that the spicy part of a jalapeno is actually the seeds. Is that really true?
Yeah, it's the seeds and the white part, the pith, connecting the seeds to the green part. But come on, remember back in the day when we thought jalapenos were spicy? I mean, eat the whole thing. Yeah, the funny thing is, like, every now and then you get one that just, brings, me, every now and then I'll get one. It just makes me weep. And then for the most part, I don't even notice, but every now and then, yeah. But it's all good. So the white part connecting the seeds, apparently, and the seeds is where all the heat resides. Okay, here's what I've got. This.
Wait, sorry, it's Lisa. Tell me, what am I putting into my blender?
Nothing. I was just saying, if you hadn't cooked yet, you can put it all in the blender. No, sorry, don't put anything in a blender.
Okay.
That's like if you really mess it up when you're cooking, let's say you're making whatever it is, and you totally jack it up, just put it in the blender. There's always a blender option. It's a lot like life, Reed.
It's like friendship.
It's like friendship, At some point, you got to take all the burnt ends and put it in a blender.
Part cooking, part thing.
Yes. So we do. So a lot of you on here, I know you've got companies and more boards and organizations and things. This is what we do. We love doing little team building events, executive retreats. Since we can't do those, we'll put bags together, send them to people. We do them all over the U.S. A lot of it tends to be more therapy than cooking, but I'm happy to do both. I'm completely unlicensed in both, but I have a lot of opinions, a lot of hard opinions that I'm willing to go out on a limb on. So, hey, Ann, somebody just stole your food.
Wait, when do we add the lemon?
Lemon is at the very end. All right. So as long as you get it to the bowl first, okay? So get all the fresh ingredients in there. I got to see your bowl before I give you the lemon trick. Get everything in there. Make sure you got some fresh things, some tomatoes, some cilantro. I'm going to go extra. I put some fresh jalapenos in there. Okay. All the things that you like. I apparently gave away all my good lemons, so you guys have all the lemons. Imagine I'm squeezing a lemon. Okay, so.
Can we add an avocado?
Absolutely. Yeah, add some avocado in there right now. Perfect. Do it. No, Rebecca Gart, do the avocado.
As a topping.
No, absolutely. Yeah, do it right now. Put it in there. Jam it right on top. Okay, so one of the restaurant things that I did, I don't know if, I know some of you have been to the restaurants, food I did always, for years and years, was to finish it with fresh lemon at the very end. The reason being, especially if you're eating food that's, kind of a little bit on the not bright side, just a fresh squeeze of lemon juice at the end brightens the whole dish, even if you just get a tiny little, just a little drift of the scent. So cut the lemon in half before it goes to the table, before you all eat. Just give it a nice squeeze over everything, a tiny sprinkle of salt, just a tiny little bit. It'll make all the flavors pop, okay? So the lemon is at the very end. And yeah.
And so we're gonna play a video now.
Okay. So if everyone's good, I'm assuming most of you got your food done. I would love to do this in person soon. You know how to get a hold of us. And we're going to stick around for questions, but we have a little video now coming to you from the lovely folks at the GLI. Okay, so don't go anywhere.
If you go to the intersection of passion and power, you will find yourself here at a paradise named Intusi. After all, how many times can you go to a place, look around, and the beauty of the landscape directly reflect the beauty within the people that live there? Here, unity is etched into every muscle fiber, and it is what's keeping this community intact. These children of power, beholders of passion, we represent the bright future of tomorrow. Our partnerships create more seats at the table than handouts ever will. And we stand out like a star at center stage. We are the key because we see change differently. An increase in resources or outside solutions is not the way. Collaboration is. Opening doors to a future unimaginable, and look, a glimpse of that future is already here. Local jobs and employment that combats poverty and prevails. More than NGOs, the most critical blows to poverty come from the community itself, from our own hands. Breathing, building, and working together, coexisting, the narrative is shifting. We are not needing to take and take and take, but people are coming here to learn, to grow, and to share a piece of what Intusi has to offer the world. Ran by the community, for the community, this place is a beacon of hope. A mural of open possibilities, painted with love that runs deeper than Lake Bunyoni itself. That wealth sits inside the heart and shared with blended languages and collective smiles. Intusi is truly the home of international collaboration. Passion is pushed through the veins with every heartbeat. Pain has been transformed into progress. Channeled through dance and song, welcoming people from near and far, making them feel at home. Because when you are at Intusi, you are home.
Dang, that was super cool. That actually looked a lot like where I grew up in the very south end of India. Thank you all so much for having us. Jamie, thank you so much for, are we back on right now? Yeah. Jamie, thank you so much for calling us in from the beach, having us on. Steve, thank you, sir. Kat, Ryan, who else am I forgetting? Everybody at GLI, thank you so much for the help and support for the organization and for letting us be a small part of it today. Rebecca Gart, hope everything turned out. We're still here. Feel free to ask any questions. Show me what your plates look like. Fire away with that. Here's what mine looks like. I kept adding peppers to it, so, you know, as the night goes, it ends up with a lot more peppers. But here's mine. And sweet.
Thanks again.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much. We really appreciate being a part of this. And yeah. Hang on as long as you want. Show me what you're eating. I'm just going to stand here and eat next to you as if it's super normal. Okay.